I hope you are very familiar with him right now, because you were here yesterday, and today too, so I hope you're familiar. But if not, he is one of the greatest sculptors in the film industry. He worked in films for more than 50 years, so that's a lot of experience. He worked on such films like Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, Alien, James Bond, Tomb Raider, Guardian of the Galaxy, and also Thor, which is my personal favorite. So, just a warm-up question. How did you like your day yesterday? How was your yesterday?
I had a lovely day and chatting with the fans, obviously doing the interview and coming and doing the panel here. Had a great day, and we went out for a lovely meal in a restaurant near the Gelliot Hotel last night, which I stayed in all those years ago. So it was a lovely day.
Did you check out the hotel? Or just outside of the Gelliot Hotel?
Oh, the Gelliot is closed at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
Hopefully it'll open again at some point because it's such a lovely hotel, but it's closed, so we just looked at the outside. I'd been telling my wife how lovely it was before we got married, and I always hoped that she'd be able to see it, so at least she saw it from the outside.
That's something. So, let's go into the details. What is it like to work on the movie sets? Like, how do you spend your time building up the amazing interiors or droid parts? Like, you do your work in a workshop or in the sets?
Well, it varies. Sometimes your work, especially if it's clay work and it's not too big, you'll be doing the work in the workshop, and then it'll be moulded and cast in plaster. And it's the plasterers that will go and build the sets up with the plaster that the details that they've moulded that I've sculpted. Other times we could be on a set. If you're doing a big rock set, which then you've got to be on set doing it. Or if you're doing a huge figure, then you need the extra space, so you could be on a set doing it. On Tomb Raider, in fact, I got Lindsay on the film with me, and she was doing basic cutting with me, and we were doing really large-scale work. So we were on L Stage at Pinewood Studios doing all the work there. There's a set there that's got the big balls that rotate around, and there's two huge panels about 20 foot across by about 18 foot high in a semicircle, and that's full of detail with swagged cloth and leaf work and all that, but that was all carved in polystyrene, so that was all done on L Stage, and then we shipped it over to the huge Bond stage, because other films will hire that stage, although it's called the Bond stage. Other films will hire it because it's such a large area to build big sets in. They actually built 2 sets on Tomb Raider at that one.
So sometimes you don't even go to the sets, just ship the work and they will handle it.
Exactly. No film is the same. You're doing different work. You can be working in different workshops. You're never ever working in the same workshop twice normally. So yeah, you never know. You're like a gypsy. You're always travelling from studio to studio, or occasionally you get to go abroad. Like I come to Budapest back in '76. I've been out to Malta 3 times on films. The first time I went out to Malta, the island, it was a quiet island. That was back in 1978 on a film called Martian Chronicles, with Rock Hudson was the star in that. And then I went back out there in the early 80s on a film called Clash of the Titans, which I'd been at Pinewood, and I went back to Pinewood Studios, but I went out there for 6 weeks to do a 25-foot figure, 3 Assyrian balls, 2 at an archway to the city centre, and 1 ball that was a large ball in the round that was in the main square where the huge figure went. So And I went out to Ireland on a film called Excalibur and carved a 22-foot high dragon out there that was all painted to look gold. So that was a nice trip, actually. It's a beautiful country, Ireland.
So do you have time to sightsee in these trips or just the work?
Sorry, did I have time?
Do you have time to go sightseeing and enjoy a bit or just the work part?
Yeah, normally you get one day off a week if you're on location. So that one day you're going to do a bit of sightseeing. I mean, occasionally on a Sunday in Malta, in the summer when I went out on Clash of the Titans, I'd go to the beach and relax for a day by myself because Lindsay wasn't out there with me. I was out there by myself, and it's just making do with the time.
So how much time does it take to finish your part in a movie? Like, how much time did you spend on the set of The New Hope?
How much time
did you spend on working on New Hope, the first Star
New
Wars
Hope.
movie?
I started on there at the beginning of January 1976, and I actually finished at the beginning of May, in the first week or so. So it's just over 4 months I was on the picture, and I had a lot of work to do in that time. As I said yesterday, I worked 76 days without a day off to do the characters. It wasn't actually set work that I was doing on the first Star Wars movie. It was all the characters. So there was a lot of work to do, though, by myself. Liz left the picture at the end of January to go out and be with her boyfriend. He was head of special effects on a film called A Bridge Too Far in Holland, and she went out there with him, and I was back at the studio by myself doing all the work. But I enjoyed it.
That's the most important part, and of course the money. This question was asked yesterday a lot of times, but I'm going to ask again because I think it's very interesting to the people. How much creative freedom do you have in these props and interiors?
Yeah, I mean, it varies with every film. Some films, the designers give you free rein, which means that you can put your own influence into what they want, but guide you as to what they want. Others, you get a really good concept design, or you actually get a drawing. You might not get a picture, but if you're a good sculptor, you can actually look at a drawing and immediately see it 3-dimension. So it doesn't matter that it's a picture that you can read 3-dimensional. I was saying yesterday with the Space Jockey, Giger's airbrush work for the Space Jockey was so good. It was very 3-dimensional, and it made the work a lot easier than just getting a flat drawing, which is just a drawing and no sense of form. But I mean, the more and more you go on, the easier and easier it gets to see 3-dimension. But I mean, when I first went in as an apprentice at the age of 16, it was a struggle at first, I must admit, to see things 3-dimensionally when you get a 2-dimensional drawing. But, as the years, in fact, by the time I was 20 and left the film industry, I could see things 3D, no problem. But initially it was difficult. And it was also difficult to understand a mould that you get off. You're seeing that in reverse. But in the end, you can even think in reverse. You could carve something and get something out of it, and you could see it in the round, the positive shape, but carve it in reverse initially, which I've done in the past. Carve something in reverse because it's an easier way to do the detail. But, hi.
For example, the Darth Vader mask was just a little line art when you made it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd already done the Stormtrooper and done some work on C-3PO, finishing work. And John Barry, the designer, said, would I go and see John Mullo, the wardrobe designer? He had a drawing for me to start the new character being Darth Vader. I went down there and he had a small drawing just from one angle with no suggestion of form on it or shape. And then I had to make the mask and the helmet work from that. So you're getting it from one angle, but you have to make it work 360 degrees. So you have a big input. John Barry would come in most days and have a look at what I was doing. Some days he'd have something to say, other days he was happy with the way it was going. But George Lucas didn't really come up and see it until it was done. When John Barry, the designer, and myself thought, you know, that it was right, George Lucas came up and he was happy with it. So there was no changes to make. I only had one go at it. There wasn't time, you know, I mean, as it was, I really had to work 76 days without a day off to get it done. So yes, it was a busy time, and with very little to go with, I had a big input on the look of Vader.
It's just so amazing that you say that it was just so quick work, and it made so it became so important and so popular and so iconic.
I mean, that's the one thing about Vader. It's so iconic now and known the world round that people can tell what the character is just from a simple black profile, and they'll see Vader, they'll know it. So it's amazing to have done it all those years ago and know that it's so iconic now. Not many, I mean, people like Michelangelo, yes, their work is so famous, and my Vader will never be as famous as Michelangelo, but it's getting up there in the way of film work. It's very well known as a character.
And another very famous movie. What was it like to work with Ridley Scott on Alien, or he didn't really check on you?
Alien, I did in 1978. I was on it for about six months. I started off where I was up on H stage at Shepperton Film Studios on all the big bone shapes. The plasterers did the simple shapes, and all the bits of bones that were strange shapes and were sculptural, I sculpted in polystyrene, and then the painters married the whole thing together. Then it was the space jockey, which I really enjoyed doing. There were two of us that worked on it, a guy called Peter Voisey, who unfortunately died many years back now, but a very good sculptor, and myself. And we took 1 month to do it. So what they actually did is Peter did a model about so big, and then all the detailing was cut off, so it gave them a shape to do in wood. So it was the very simple shape in wood, and all the detail we carved and then applied to the wood. So most of the detail wasn't deeper than about a foot. Some were a bit more, a couple of foot, if it was needed. The shape needed it. But it did make our job a lot easier. The structure was there, and we worried about doing the detail on it. I said yesterday that you might have seen pictures with Giger supposedly working on the side of it, but he was posing for pictures. He did an incredible design. As I said, he's brilliant with the airbrush. Everything was so three-dimensional that his concept designs, that they were brilliant to work for. But he wasn't really a sculptor, and it was Peter and I that actually carved it and did it all. And Giger might have spent an hour or so just messing about and having pictures taken. But he did actually, when the sculpting had all been finished, he got his airbrush on the finished job and he worked on the paint side of it. Again, you know, he helped to bring it to life, adding bits of latex as skin on the figure as well. So he's a very clever chap. Unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago, but a very good artist.
And I wanted to ask this about your project, because I love Harry Potter. So do you have any interesting details on the Ministry of Magic set?
Harry Potter, I worked on 4 of them. The first one, I only remember them as numbers actually. Number 3 I worked on. And I didn't do too much on that. I did some big stones and various bits and pieces, some rock work, not much at all. But on number 5 I went on and we had some very interesting work to do on it. The atrium, or the Ministry of Magic, they all come in through really ornate fireplaces. And they liked them that much, the designer. They had 17 of them in the end. They had 2 rows of them, and then they had another row behind each one. So there was 17 fireplaces, and you'd see them enter into the Ministry of Magic through the fireplaces. But they were quite ornate, and I did all that work. There was I don't know if you've seen it on the film yet, but there was a serpent I did. And you would have seen a picture of me sculpting that. Then there's a picture of about 4 of them all in a line in the atrium. Then there's the huge centaur, the gold figure. There's a lady there, which I helped work on. And the goblin, I did that, which went on there, which was a nice one to do. And there was also a large ornate gate there, where they go through to go up to the lifts. And I spent some time doing all this ornate work on these gates. It was never filmed on.
Really?
Yeah, and that can happen. I mean, sometimes your work is seen up front, and that was what was so nice on Star Wars. Because you're doing the characters, they're always in front of camera. But sometimes your work can be in the background and it's slightly out of focus. So you've done the work, you've enjoyed doing it, it's there, but the main thing it does, it makes that set believable. So if you're doing the interior of a palace or something like that, all that detail, big staircases and columns and everything else, it's what makes you believe that is real, or not a set on a stage at one of the film studios. I mean, on Alexander the Great, had some huge caps on that to do with really ornate. One was 6 foot high, one was 4'6" high. Also had a 14-foot high figure of a winged king. You might have seen that up at the back, I don't know, but yeah, that was 14 foot high, and they actually gave me 2 weeks. That's all I had to work on it. And there was a lot of detail on it. And the plasters in the film industry, they can be quite sarcastic, and they're very funny, but and it's a laugh being with them, but they never really give anyone any praise or anything. But I finished this huge figure, and I heard a little round of applause behind me from these plasterers, and I thought, are they taking the mickey out of me? Are they making fun of me? So, no, I'm not sure what they were impressed with, the finish on the job or the fact that I did it in the 2 weeks. And I think it was probably that I did it in 2 weeks that they were impressed with. So, yeah, they didn't think I'd do it.
Yes, that's very impressive. That's true. And usually, how many sculptors working on a movie, or you just come in and do a part of the work, and someone else going to do something else on the movie, or it's a crew or a group?
It varies from every film. As I said, there were 2 of us that started on Star Wars, and then when Liz left, I was the only sculptor on it. I've had that with Bond movies. I've been the only sculptor. Other Bond movies, if the work's there, you have as many as 5 or 6. But there's one film where I was amazed at how many sculptors on it, and that was Beauty and the Beast, which is a Disney film that wasn't only about 7 years ago. And there was so much sculptural work on it that there were 30 sculptors on it, which was, it's unheard of. The unfortunate part is when you get to the point where there are 30 sculptors on a picture, there were a good few of them that weren't really that good. But there were some very good sculptors on it as well. So, but if you've got that much work on a film, you have to get what you can. I mean, there was a thing, the film Planet of the Apes, and it was the one that was done fairly recently at Pinewood, and there was a set that they had to redo. They'd spent 9 months doing this set in America, and they'd used steel to do it. It was the crash of the spaceship, and we had to do that set in a week. In fact, they gave me a T-shirt after that week with the longest week of the year on it, because we did all the hours God sends to get it done in the time. But we had about 20. I had about 20 sculptors on that under me, and I had to organise it to do all this work very, very quickly. But we got it done. They were happy about it, and I actually got a credit on it, having only spent a week, which surprised me. But yeah, that was a good film to work on.
And which movie or which part of a movie is your favorite you ever done? Like, I know that the Vader helmet is the most popular and the most known, but which one is your favorite? My favorite is probably the Bond movies, because they're so... I loved Indiana Jones. It's not so much the first and the third, but Temple of Doom, I loved working on that film. It was really nice to work on. The work was really good. But the Bond movies, they're so varied. The type of work you can, anything like the shark that Jaws wrestled with on the first Bond film I worked on in 1976. And I worked on that just as when I went back from Budapest on Prince and the Pauper. I was only back a couple of weeks, and I started on the first Bond movie that I worked on. And I did a lot of Egyptian panels, and I did the shark that Jaws wrestled, the character Jaws, who had the big teeth, 6'10" high he was, and I did the shark that he wrestles with in the Shark Tank, where Bond picks him up with a big magnet with his teeth and drops him in. I don't know how he killed the shark with one bite of a human mouth, I don't know, but he did. But you also see it swim up to the female actress there. But I said that yesterday, actually, but Abu Simbel, which is where Q's headquarters was based in Egypt, and they filmed at Karnak Temple. It was years later, I think it was early 2000 something. I went out to Egypt, to Luxor, to carve a big section, full-size section of Abu Simbel. And because the story was, it was very early in the 1800s, and the sand had blown up right across the entrance. It was probably about 100 foot deep at one end, and it had covered the entrance up. And Belzoni, the strongman that was going out to get the antiquities for the British Museum, he went out there and he actually found the entrance to Abu Simbel. So that was part of the story. So we only had to carve up to just under the knees, because they had sand delivered and had the sand going up to cover the entrance. Then we had to do lots of work for the interior as well, Egyptian panels and all that sort of thing. But it was lovely to go out and see what
I'd imagined on the early Bond movie. And I also went to Karnak Temple, which is so impressive. These huge figures, huge columns with detail on them going right the way up. And our hotel was just opposite Luxor Temple, and that again had beautiful figures and that in it, but it wasn't in the Bond movie. But that was an experience, Egypt, I must admit.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And how hard it is to do research for like animals like the python and the shark? How is it harder than doing those which are static and not moving that much?
Yeah, I actually went out and bought a couple of shark books to make sure that I had good reference on that, because there was going to be close-ups on the film of it, so I made sure that I had good reference. And it is important, if you're doing something like that, an animal or whatever, you need the good reference to work from, to make sure that you get the bits of detail right that make it look real. And if you don't do those details right, it doesn't. It would look wrong. But the python, I did have a little bit of reference, but not too much on that. But it was a 15-foot python, and you would have seen a picture of it back here. I don't know if it's gone or the film's ended yet, but yeah, you would have seen a picture. It was 14 foot, it was painted to look real, and the special effects did it, so it slid down, not too much movement, but enough to make it look real. And it was when it came onto Kate Capshaw, the actress, shoulder, she saw it and grabbed it and threw the python. But she was absolutely terrified of snakes, so she wouldn't have a snake near her. And that's the reason I sculpted it, because she would not have a snake anywhere near her. She was terrified of them. I actually did another snake, actually, on Raiders of the Lost Ark. I did a cobra, and it's the one that's in front of Harrison Ford. And when Harrison Ford goes down, he climbs down the Anubis figures, there's 3 of them there, Egyptian figures, and when he gets to the floor, there's snakes everywhere. A lot of them, they bought about 4,000 Indian grass snakes in, and they were mainly that, but there are a few pythons, and there was a cobra in there. And when you shoot, they shot from the back of Harrison Ford's head, you see a real live cobra behind a glass sheet. But when they shot, because they're shooting into dark, they can go through the glass. When they shot back the other way, they couldn't use the glass. So you couldn't have a live cobra in front of the actor with no glass there. So I sculpted the cobra that you see. When they look back at his terrified face, that the snake's in front of him. So that was another snake I did. And also when he gets out of that there's lots of Egyptian panels. And funny enough, as a bit of a joke at the time, they had R2-D2 on one of the panels. And I don't know whether there were only 2 of us doing those panels, and I don't know if I sculpted that or someone else, the other person did. But anyway, it was a bit of a laugh with Spielberg, and because it was Spielberg and Lucas, and being George Lucas, they thought, like you had the Obi-Wan Club in Temple of Doom, that's based on the Star Wars, again, just tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. But, yeah.
Do you ever hit something like that in a set? Like an R2-D2 or some little joke?
Sorry,
Did you ever made or hid a little joke on the set when nobody saw you?
Well, I didn't know about it at the time. It was only years later that actually fans started saying to me, "Did I do that?" And I didn't know whether I did. I've only ever said that if there's a 50% chance that I did it, but I don't know. But as far as jokes and that go in the film industry, it's terrible. I mean, there was an apprentice plasterer come in, and he thought it'd be good idea for all the mugs that they have their individual mugs, and he super glued them all down to the table, so none of them. So what they did is they grabbed him and chucked him in what they call the slosh tank. That's where they clean all the bowls of plaster out into this tank, and it stinks, it's a mess. He got thrown in there. But he was pleased about it. It was like a trophy to him, being thrown in the tank. Yeah.
Do you have any other funny stories from the movie sets?
Well, I mean, there are funny stories, but I mean, one which we found was funny at the time was Giger on Alien. We were about to start on the entrances to the spaceship, and Giger came on stage, and he had these top shelf magazines of women, no clothes on, with close-up details as such, and he was showing these as reference for the entrances to the spaceship. And we thought it was very odd that he was asking us to do that, but then a lot of his work is very sexual. And he left the stage, and Peter and I looked at one another, and we laughed, and we said, there's just no way we can do what he's asking us to do. So what you actually see in the film is a very, very stylized version. So I said about the heart yesterday that on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where the sacrifice is going to be lowered down into the lava to be sacrificed, and the priest reaches in and pulls the heart out, and you've got this dripping heart of blood, and you can see it. The movement is ba-bum, ba-bum, as a heart would go. But the production thought it'd be a good idea if I went to Harefield Heart Hospital to talk to a surgeon there. And I went over there, and I sat chatting with him for a while, and I said, what's the closest heart I can get to the human? And he said the primates, which I just couldn't get a monkey's heart. So we settled in the end for a sheep's heart, was probably quite close to the human heart. So I used that to do the detailing, and then I had a plastic hospital heart to get where the veins were placed and everything right, to get it all looking right, and then the sheep's heart, a real live one. Well, the sheep was dead, obviously, but yeah, I used that to do it. But as I was leaving, the surgeon turned around and said, I'm doing open heart surgery tomorrow. Would you like to come along? And I very quickly said, no, thank you. For one, I could hardly stop him halfway through the operation and say, Doc, can you put the heart on his chest? I want to get a few pictures. So it wouldn't have been any good to me anyway. But, I mean, a lot of the funny things that happen are what we call wind-ups, where plasterers or people try to wind other people up, and they don't catch on. Then that at the time, it probably doesn't sound funny now, but at the time when you're in the situation and you see things going on, it's quite funny. I always thought that, I mean, we've written three books now, and I always thought it would be good to write a book of experiences, of things that have happened that are funny, but I have a terrible memory for that sort of thing, telling jokes or whatever, so never have done. But there's 3 books there anyway. In fact, they're nearly all gone, so if anyone wants to get a book after this, you better run to where we are, because they're nearly all gone.
Yes, and he will be at the panel, after the panel at the other building, at the signing table, so you have to run and grab the books and the pictures, so don't be late. And for a little bit of teasing, can you tell me about something? Can you tell something about the books? What the 3 books you have here?
Well, I've only got 2 books. The third book is out of print at the moment. We've got to sort that when we get home. But one is the start of the autobiography. The one that is out of print is the second book of that, so it brings us up to date. But the first book is from when I was born as a child. It starts basically my father driving over Hampstead Heath in London in his motorbike and sidecar with my mother at 9 months pregnant, trying to make her have the baby early so he'd get his tax rebate. And I was stubborn. I wasn't going to be born when he wanted me to, so he didn't get his tax rebate. But then it takes me into how I got into the film industry, my apprenticeship, doing college work, Star Wars, and then on to other films. There is a shorter version of a court case that I got involved with in the High Court in London. It's about someone that did the vacuum forming on the film of the stormtroopers, but when Lucas went after him to stop him doing these, he said to get intellectual rights, he said he sculpted them and designed them. Well, he didn't. So I got involved with the court case. He lost the court case, but then Lucasfilm lost the copyright because the judge deemed the stormtroopers industrial, and the copyright on industrial runs out after 15 years, and with art it's 50 years. So it was good for me because it proved that I did it. The judge said that I definitely did the stormtrooper, that he was lying. In so many words he said that. And Lucas lost the rights of the stormtrooper, which I didn't agree with. But it's helped me because I endorse a company that makes stormtrooper armour, who are doing very nicely. So, yeah, I mean, that was good for me personally, but...
And the other book?
Sorry?
The other book?
Oh, sorry, yeah, we were talking about books. Yeah, the other book is that story, which I've just been saying about. It's the Stormtrooper, the true story. And it's how the Stormtrooper starts off with stuff about Lindsay and I. And the book is told from her point of view. So it's like her talking. And it's how we met, leading right up to doing the Stormtrooper. Then it goes on to the court case, but going into detail this time. Then it goes on to RS, the company that do the Stormtroopers, and then the 501st, which have now, worldwide, there are about 14,000 members that have all got Stormtrooper armour or Sandtrooper armour and the different characters. They're marvellous. They do make a lot of money for charity. They go into hospitals and see really ill kids. In fact, I did a convention celebration, which is all Star Wars, at Orlando. And there are 120 stormtroopers, and they wanted me to do a photo shoot with them, which I did. And then I went to the end, and they wheeled this young lad out who was terminally ill. And I said to the stormtrooper next to me, I said, how do you do this, going into hospitals with kids like this? And he said, why do you think we never take our helmets off? So, yeah, they do marvellous work.
We also have a Legion in Hungary, so we also have...
Yeah, I've noticed there's a couple of Sandtroopers here.
Yes.
They're the ones, the Sandtroopers were in the desert in Tunisia. They were the first ones that were filmed in Star Wars. So yeah, they were made at Elstree. They didn't go out to be vac formed. The vacuum forming machine they had at Elstree made the first Sandtroopers. And then the Stormtroopers were made outside by the guy that pulled the vacuum formed plastic over the moulds given to him. So there's the books.
Yeah. So you should check them out before they all sold. And thank you so much for your answers. You are still amazing, and I love your stories. So this is the part where you can ask questions if you have any questions which was not mentioned or you want to ask about some more details. Srácok, tudtok adni egy mikrofont a kérdezőnek, hogyha jön? Nem? Dave? Nem?
Természetesen.
Hogyha még valaki szeretne kérdezni, fordítunk is, tehát nem vagy magyarul mondjátok nekünk. Majd ide gyertek.
Hello, sir. Thanks for being here. My question would be that what's your advice for someone who would like to get involved in prop making and who's also a maker already?
Sorry, did you get... Could you come a bit closer? I'm...
What's your advice for someone who wants to get
My advice... Are you at college?
I finished.
You finished college. Well, if you had any sense, you took as much photographs as you could of your work, build the best portfolio you can get. That's what will get you a start on a film or even outside at a company that's doing sculptural work or design work. So yeah, let's get that portfolio together. Then really all you can do after that is knock on doors, you know, do the footwork, and don't get downhearted if you get turned down, because everyone gets turned down at some time. I did initially a few times, and you're never going to get every job you go for. So don't worry about it, don't get disheartened if you're out of work. And with the arts, it's one of those things with actors, sculptors, you're going to get periods out of work. Don't worry about it, just keep going for the work. Eventually, when you become known, people will be phoning you. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have another question? Anyone? Még valaki kérdéssel esetleg? No? Okay.
Okay, we're done.
Yes, we're done. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this little panel. And thank you so much for coming here. And
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Can I get an applause for him? Thank you.